Hi, this is Monica Muir, Advanced Certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor and Intuit Premier Reseller. When you're choosing your version of QuickBooks, I find it's helpful to know what makes one different from the other. This video is going to highlight the benefits that you pick up when you are in QuickBooks Enterprise that you won't be able to get with QuickBooks Premier, with the idea that you can make a more informed decision. So very helpful, right? And I do have a chart that can also help you. So if you go, if you're on my website, muirassociates.com, then you can go to QuickBooks Pro Premier, and from there you're going to find there's a button that says Help Me Choose, and then also on this page is probably where you found this video if you didn't find it over in YouTube. But when you click on Help Me Choose, then over here you can put your name and email, and you'll get, I have a chart that actually compares the different versions of QuickBooks, so you can make a more objective decision. But if you're like me, you like to see it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So let me close out of this screen, and let me go into my QuickBooks here. So I am in, right now I'm actually in the Accountant's Edition of QuickBooks. I don't want that to intimidate you at all, and I'll show you a couple different features about that. But I am in Enterprise, and so I'm actually just working off of this feature comparison chart that I just told you. I'm actually going to work from there. So if you've got that in front of you, that's great, and if not, no problem. You can get it later, but that will be kind of like the flow in which I kind of highlight the differences. So the first section really is just on scalability and access. So if nothing else, I find if you are in a business where you have more than one company, which actually a lot of my clients do have, and you're in and out of them all the time, you know, it's a real hassle to have to close the company file and then open up a new one, right? So when you are in Enterprise, you're actually able to open up a second company file, and I currently have one open right now, so you'll get a chance to take a look at that shortly. Another reason why a lot of my clients will move into Enterprise is they simply need more people to use QuickBooks. Anytime like Premier can go up to 5, if you get around 4 and 5, a lot of times I say maybe it's worth taking a look at Enterprise. And one of the reasons is actually in how you restrict access, the way you grant permissions. So when you are in QuickBooks Premier, you kind of say like, yes, they can get into, they can do accounts receivable, but you can't be more specific. Like you can work on estimates, but you can't touch invoices. Or you can enter purchase orders, but you can't enter bills. You can't do that in Premier. And as the more people you have in your books, I guarantee the tighter you want those permissions, right? So if I go to company and users, this is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to set up users and roles, and that's not something that you have in Premier. So I'm going to start with the role list. First off, QuickBooks comes with a lot of predefined roles, and you can use them, you can edit them, you can duplicate them, which is really, really nice. But if we go into, say, something like accounts payable, I'm going to edit this just so you can see what all you can do with this and what maybe you can't do. So if you take a look, there's only 5 areas in QuickBooks Premier and Pro that you can even restrict access. So all of a sudden, I want you to see there's definitely more than 5. And if I take a look at, say, accounting, it's got a clear circle or white circle, and that means you have no access. And over here you can see access level says none. If I come over to banking, what I see is that there's mixed access. If I click on the little plus sign here, I get more detail. So what you see is that this particular person could enter credit card charges and go into the registers. And if I click on credit card charges, what I see over here is they have full access. If you come over to the centers, then what you see are some half circles. And the half circle says that you have access to some things, but not everything. So if we come down here, if they can look at the customer center, but they can view the list. Maybe if you, and that's all, they can't create entries, they can't do anything else. You might decide that maybe you want someone to view the list, or maybe and you don't want them to view the balance, but maybe they could print the list. So in the vendor center right now, they have access to everything. If I scroll down here, I can see the vendors and payables. of right now, they pretty much can do anything, but you could say, you know what, you can't pay the bills. So I can come down here and I can say, you know what, you don't get the ability to pay the bills, but you can certainly do just about everything else. So it gives you a lot of power. And actually, while I'm in the screen, not that it's necessarily something well, you might do it with the person in payables, but if I come and take a look at the bank registers, what he wants you to also see is you can specify that they can access one bank account and not another. So a lot of times you may have you might have some, if you've got two bank accounts, I don't see this often anymore, but for a long time people had a payroll account and then they had like an operating account. So you might find that they can access the operating account, but you don't want them anywhere near the payroll account. So, but I just want you to see that you can actually restrict access in a lot of different ways. So that is defining the roles. That's the first thing, is you have a role, and then the second thing is then you assign the role to the user. So when you put in the user, you can say, okay, you can do payables, and maybe there's some, a couple other things in here that they can do purchasing. So you can add the roles. What's really nice too is if you have more than one person who has the same role, now you've got the role. You don't have to recreate all these permissions for the second user. And or if they were to leave and someone new comes in, you just assign the roles. And then you can always go in and you can tweak those rules. I've seen where people actually had permissions specific for every person, but then when they leave, it becomes an issue. So anyhow, so just so you know this is probably a huge reason why I see people going into enterprise, is that you just have tighter permissions, and the larger you get, the more important that becomes. Oh, sorry, I'll get off my little soapbox there. So another thing that I find when people come into QuickBooks is I don't see it so much with my contractors, which is who I work with predominantly, but I have seen it with some of the clients in the past where they get a lot of new clients on a regular basis and their list got too big and they actually outgrew QuickBooks Premier. So there's a limit to how large your names list can be, and I have this on the chart. And the names is customers, vendors, employees, and other names. It includes the jobs if you're doing jobs with your customers. It includes inactive. So if you've been in business a long time, that list does get big, which is good for your business, right? And but a lot of times you don't want to have to all of a sudden not be able to add any more customers, right? That would not be a good feeling. And I've had a couple clients call me in a panic. And so the nice thing is we can move them into enterprise. And if you deal with inventory, then again, how big can your inventory list be? It's much larger when you get into enterprise. So they'll say that, they'll say it's unlimited, but I would put that in quotes. But it does say that there's not a hard cutoff point. It'll depend on a lot of other things going on in your data file. Another thing that you can do is you can do custom fields. Now I know maybe you don't play with that at all. I actually have mine maxed out. So you can have more custom fields in Enterprise than you can in QuickBooks Pro or Premier. If I come over here, we're under, over here it says custom fields, and you can create them by clicking on define fields. And if you are in Premier, you only get up to, you see this far. You don't get over here. So the first thing is you can do more custom fields when you're in Enterprise. But the second thing that's really, really nice is you get to control the type of data. So take an example here where they've got birth date or date of last raised. See all the different ways that you could do date. And now if you let someone just manually key it in, you've got all sorts of ways. So that does become kind of tough to keep up with. And if you want to run a report and you wanted to be able to pick out things for this one custom field, they can be all over the board sometimes. So it's nice if you can have them work from a drop-down, either at least control how the information goes in. You can even create a drop-down list. So if you want to know, like say, the services that they use, or yes or no, then that would be an option in here that you could do. And there's no, I won't say that there's not a limit, but what it does do is it does make it easier and more uniform. And if you wanted to go in and filter on something, this would make it a lot easier to do. And then when you are in, I'll show you if we had, now if we're in here, let me go back in, and if I'm in the additional information, if this had a drop-down list, you'd see like a little drop-down arrow here, and then I'd be able to pick from there. Now, we don't want you to pick for your spouse, right? But just like what you see over here for rep. So if you had a sales rep, and then just like the ability to just add, click and add, that's what you get when you have the custom fields here. You can do something similar with the with your items list. So if I come over here, and I'm not going to see it maybe so much in this sample file, but if I click on, say, this one, I go over here to custom fields. Maybe you want to know color, or you want to know the material, maybe you want to know size. There's different things that you might want to track, but this is for the items list. So again, it gives you a way to maybe keep the item more generic, but you can add the detail, the description or whatever, in a custom field, and you can pull it in on purchase orders, you can pull it in on estimates or invoices, so it does make things a lot easier. Let me see. Then as far as if you do memorized transactions, I'm a big fan of those. There, you can do more when you have Enterprise than you can when you are in Premier. Going down my list, talked about controlling data in the custom fields. You can actually, if you are entering a bill or putting in a credit card charge, you can actually come over here, and I could right-click, and I can customize the columns. So I could add a sales rep, and here are 2 of the custom fields that were in there. So that sometimes is helpful if you're trying to decide, trying to get more information in when you're doing some of your expenses. And just moving right down my list here, see what else I wanted to pull in. Another feature that I like in Enterprise, it works with some of my clients, not everyone, but in the preferences, let me pull this over here. If I go into the accounting preferences, so most of you are used to maybe turning on the classes and whether or not you prompt, but in Enterprise, you can actually assign classes. So typically what I find for my contractors is either want to assign it to the name of the customer, or they want to assign it to, say, the items. So these service items indicate, say, if you're a landscaper, if you're doing the lawn care, then maybe that's going to fall under maintenance. And if you're doing, installation, then maybe it's going to fall under your install projects. So sometimes the items will work. For me personally, I use names, so I can say, what type of client, not so much what type of client, but some of the other information that I want to track, I do through here. So it depends on what your classes are. If they're divisions, then if your customers only fall in one division, then maybe names works. If the divisions fall in line more with your items list, then that might work better for you. And another thing when you are in, I'll be back on the preferences, I'm sure. So another thing when you are, and then let me go in, so I talked about default class. So let me set it up real quickly just so you can see how it plays out. So if we did it to, say, for the items, then if I'm here, if I go back to the, this probably isn't a good fit, but if I go over here to the, did I set this up? I thought I did. So maybe I didn't. Thought I did. We go back into the preferences and accounting, assign classes, and maybe this one doesn't have classes turned on. We do. Okay, so let me go back into the items list, and here's the class up here. So now I can pick what it is. So again, this is probably not the best fit, but just for you, maybe for the types of services that you do, that might be a way if you're going to use classes, or again, it might be that your customers might fall better. But it's one less thing to fill out. Sometimes, and you don't have to worry about people always asking you. You do have the ability in a transaction to change it, so it's not etched in stone. Just if that's any consolation. Another thing, I know more and more of my clients are interested in having remote access, right? Aren't we all? So it's the old, well, used to be called terminal services. It was a way of having a dedicated server which not only holds your data, but also your software. most of you, if you're in a traditional setup, your software is on your computer, and then your data maybe is on a server. But in a remote desktop environment, your software is also on that server. So you actually remote in to that server, and you use the software that's on the server as well as the data. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but enterprise is supported in that environment. So for a lot of people, that becomes another thing. Some people own their remote server, and others will outsource it. But it's not your traditional server, and your IT person will be able to explain more about that. A couple other things with enterprise, you might be happy to know that tech support is included. It's unlimited tech support. It's US-based, isn't that nice? So, and it comes with enterprise. So, and I have had clients that use it. They've been happy with the tech support that they get. There's also, in essence, 12 hours of training that you can access online, and you can drill down to really short videos, 1 and 2 minute videos, which is really nice. So it's nice if you have someone new and you want to give them some training. I find that with every business, there's always nuances that are unique to your company, so that wouldn't be in the training, but there's some really good basic information that's in there that people can access. And if we take a look at the sales, one of the things that that you'll see in QuickBooks is you can have price levels, and so usually that's associated with your customers. So if I come in here and I go back to the additional information, excuse me, under the payments, I can associate a price level with the customer. So, and in QuickBooks, if you're in Premier, you can do by dollar amount or by percentage. But in Enterprise, you can actually take it another notch up. So I am going to minimize this one, and let me bring the other file over. And this file is a sample. It's a sample wholesaler file. So if I go here, and pretty sure, maybe not. Let me go into Preferences and go to Sales and Customers. And under the company preferences, I can enable advanced pricing. Advanced pricing is a really nice feature. And one of the things with advanced pricing that you'll find you can do is you can create a lot of different rules. If all you do, if you decide you don't want advanced pricing, what Enterprise will let you do is have more price levels. But you might find that you like to see the advanced pricing. So I'm going to turn this on so you can see what it looks like. And first off, they'll take your existing price levels and create them to rules. So now I have a price rule list, not a price level list. So when I come in here, there's a few different things that you can see. But if I were to do a new rule, what I want you give it a name. But what you're able to do is you can say that this is for certain customers, certain classes, certain sales reps. That's up to you, or certain items. So if we do certain customers, and then you can say, you can do by customer type, only certain ones get this pricing, or you could be specific, only certain names, or it's only certain types of jobs. So we'll do a customer type, and then we'll say that it's, actually this is not a good one. We'll do, we'll just pick, I'm going to pick a couple of these. Okay, so we can say that customer, and then we can say these items. We could do item type, or we could do preferred vendor. But I want you to see is that there's a lot more power in this, and you can put in a date range. It's only for a certain date range. You can make the price percentage or amount. It can be higher or lower than the base price or the cost. So, and you can even have overrides, like, in these situations we don't. So if you do, I don't see this with my contractors, I see it with those who actually do have things that they're selling, then, a lot of times there are, as you know, some wheeling and dealing, but there's also, if I go into the items list, then what you'll see when I go in here, let me make these a little bigger. So if I were to go into one of these, what I want you to see is I can even do quantity discounts. So you get, if you buy this number, then this is going to be what we can give you a certain discount, and here's your new price. We can mark up, mark down kind of thing. So and that's always been one of the beefs when you were in Pro or Premier. If you did anything with inventory, is that you know, a lot of times people do buy, you know, well, they'll buy so many cases, they'll buy so many of these that you couldn't do a discount. So with this, you can. So it's a really nice, powerful feature. And so just kind of going back down through my list here and see if there's anything else I wanted to make note of. A couple other things. If I go into the preferences again, and let me see, I think it's, you can choose, I found most people don't do this, but you can choose not to sell to overdue customers who are overdue. This is everyone, so this does not let you do exceptions, and that's usually what I get as well. There's like 1 or 2 people, you know, that we'll make an exception for, but again, the bigger you are, then maybe you don't want anyone selling to someone who's past due, because they're different departments, and you're not always doing someone a favor to rack up a big bill with you, right? You can also, if I go into, I can write, I'm going to do a new item just so you can see. So in the past, you've been able to do a subtotal by amount, but now you can actually do, you can do a total of quantities if you want to total up hours, if you want to total up certain types of materials, you can total up price, you can also total up cost. So, and then you can decide, so you might do something different depending on whether it's an estimate or an invoice, but you can actually have more totals, and that you can't do in Premier. So it's a really nice, helpful feature. I'd say most of my clients are more interested in doing quantity, because quantity and cost are probably the two, and especially like how many hours on a job. So let me go back to, see if I can go back to this other, go back into the Rock Castle, see if there's anyone else. And so if we did have the form, then it would be, instead of those, whoops, wrong thing. So if you started to do the, if you had multiple subtotals, then you would have, you'd see them listed here. So what I would suggest, if you do them, is make the name a little bit different so you know what you are actually doing the subtotal for. That would be helpful, right? Let's see, moving along on the chart, the next thing would be taking a look at the, under the time and employees. I think really the only thing I want to point out here is that if you're an enterprise and you are doing all of your payroll in-house, Intuit calls it their enhanced payroll. That says you do the paychecks. You also are the one that's doing the tax deposits, making those, and you are also doing the 941s, 940s, all that fun stuff. If you are doing that, and then you might want to take a look at enterprise. If you are offering, if you do direct deposit, then I strongly recommend that you take a look at enterprise. I've had a few of my clients bump up from QuickBooks Pro and QuickBooks Premier into Enterprise because they actually saved money when they went into Enterprise because it included the direct deposit. So you go back through and you figure out how many employees do you have, whether you're paying them weekly or biweekly, especially those of you with a weekly payroll, and then you're being charged either per employee per month or you're being charged per direct deposit check. So it can add up quickly. And so you might find then that the enterprise will make more sense, and it would actually be the enterprise gold, not the enterprise silver. So you can reach out to me. I can help price that out for you and let you see what you're currently doing, and then price out what the enterprise would be, because there's a lot of different options in enterprise. There's also a lot of different promotions depending on when we're speaking. So, but I would strongly recommend that you do give some thought to that if you're doing payroll in-house. That's I've moved a lot of clients. Even if you're already in an older version of Enterprise, I've moved clients around and been able to do that. Another feature is one that I guess, actually I have my assistant do, like when I travel, she enters this stuff. So I never really gave a whole lot of thought, but one of the things, and for me, when you're in the Accounts Edition, it's under Batch Enter Transactions. If I was in an industry-specific edition, then it would be under Company. But what you're able to do when you go in here is if you can batch enter checks. Credit card charges is probably the one that I see the most, or if you're depending on what else you do, if you've got bills and credits from some other place that need to come into QuickBooks somehow, that this is a way. But you could do this. You can pick the credit card. You can put the date, who it's for. You can do the account. But you can also do, and I'm in job costing is one of my big things. So to me, I want things on the item level when it's for a job. So I can move up here and I can do the, say, the item that I want used for the transaction. And I can also come back in here and I can say I want the class and I want the job. So you can put that in as well. And again, you can decide the order. So if you have some entries like that, you know, this might be, if they're in a spreadsheet, you've downloaded them that way, or if you're going to just key them in, this might be a great place. I actually had someone who was looking at like what version they were going to do, and the batch enter was really important to them because they did that a lot. So I do want to let you see that that's something you can do. You can do it in the Accountant's Edition of Premier, and you can do it in all of the editions of Enterprise. I'm going down to my list. See what else. So a couple other things, getting back to the, let me go back into the other file here, go into the wholesale. So when I'm in here, because these are the folks that are going to worry more about the inventory and purchasing. So one of the things that you could do here is if you wanted to create a purchase order, you can do that based on a reorder point. But you can have a maximum reorder point, so that kind of helps. So if I go back into here, what you'll see is here's the minimum, which you would have in Premier, but you can also put a maximum. We don't need to order any more than. You can put that in there. Another thing, if you deal with assemblies, one of the worst things is if you have like all these little nested assemblies. So if you're going to make, say, a bike, and then maybe the handlebar actually has a few different components to that, and so that's one assembly. Or, you know, and in order to build a bike, you need to have that, and then maybe there's a couple other sub-assemblies. And in the past, if one of those sub-assembly items that you needed to use didn't have enough, then you had to go back and fix that assembly first before you could even begin working on the bike. So this way, you're actually able to do, you can actually auto-build the nested assemblies, which is really nice. Another thing, and this makes all the accountants and bookkeepers happy. I'm not so sure about the clients, but it should. And one of the things is you can don't allow negative quantities. I can't tell you how badly that will mess up your books and your numbers, so that becomes really important. And that's one of the features in Enterprise. You can also, if you're dealing with inventory, one of the other features is, if I go back into preferences, there's actually an advanced inventory. So if I go into here, I can see that I can have multiple sites. So I know, like, even if it's as simple as a warehouse and trucks, but it could be that you've got a couple different, couple different warehouses, so that you can actually track sites. You can also track bin locations, so it's not only where in the warehouse, but maybe what aisle and what bin. You can also come in here. You can do serial numbers or lot numbers. I'm sorry, you can't do both. Don't ask. But you can turn this on, and then you can decide, as you can see here, what you would show them on, and then whether or not what you want to do in the case of a blank or duplicate. You can do first in, first out versus I would say QuickBooks pretty much does average costing. So this is going to be, your costing is going to be based on first in, first out, or if you want to do barcodes. These 4 sections here are all a part of the advanced inventory. And QuickBooks Enterprise does come in different levels, so this actually is in the platinum level, but I'll speak more to that later, but just wanted you to see about that. And then if we look at, I've already mentioned the quantity discounts, and tracking by warehouse and bin, barcodes. So, all right, so we're done with the inventory. And then moving on into the reporting, you do have more, just probably, I'd say only 2 more reports. Let me go back into the contractor file. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing there. So let me go back into this contractor file so you can see. If I go into the reports and I go to jobs, time, and mileage, there are two reports that might be of interest. And one is a WIP summary, WIP being work in process. So what's nice, if you have to track percent over, under, this does it for you, let me tell you. So I'll run a report, there it is, it's a click of a button, there's percentage, so you can see this one's done, but you can see that these are only so much percent. It says you have, that's assuming you have your estimate in here, but this is so much faster than having to run a report, take it out to Excel, and then do calculations that way. So you kind of have to weigh your time and the workarounds versus doing something so quickly in Enterprise. The other one is committed cost report, and I have had clients call before. That was really important to them. So if I come up to, close the screen. If I come up here again, back to jobs, time, and mileage, and go to committed cost reports, this will show you again your estimate has to be in, but committed cost, let me see if this one's got any. Can't remember on this sample. They do. So this one, if I look, here's a committed cost. I can drill down on this. There's a purchase order. Okay, so far that not everything has come in, but you can see there's a purchase order, and so far they've committed to 1,500 of it. I go back to the other one, and this is one that I really like, is unpaid wages. So this says if you do payroll in QuickBooks, and you have not, you've entered the time in QuickBooks, but you have not paid them yet, this will give you a value for your unpaid wages. So again, if you're trying to figure out, where are you on your costs, this is really, really nice. The only caveat that I make is it does not include like the labor burden, like the taxes, but at least it's based on what their wage is, their, whether it's hourly or salary, and the number of hours that they've worked, you've got something in here. It's the only report that gives you that. The other ones kind of say, here's what the actual costs have been, that says you've already cut the check, or you can get something in time, but to be able to get the dollars, and when you're looking at sort of like an estimated versus actual, this is very, very helpful. The other thing that I have on this chart is I actually go in, and again, I'm in the Accountants Edition. You would have an industry specific. So your industry specific over here would list the industry that you're in and then have things that are common for you. Obviously, these are common for the accountant. If I go over to reports and industry specific, then if you're a contractor, then these are the reports that you're going to see. I list them out on this chart so you kind of have something to compare to. Some of these reports are also in the jobs, time, and mileage, but not all of them. So I list out the ones that are unique to the Contractors Edition. Same thing with manufacturing and the professional services, and then the retail and nonprofit reports. So you'll have reports that are specific to you, and I listed out the wholesale, manufacturing, contractor, and professional services, since that's predominantly who the people I work with. The other thing, just to let you know, that I mentioned that Enterprise comes in 3 levels, and I've got that on this chart. I also have it on my web page. Can't remember if I kept that open. So if I go to, where is it? This one. So if I go to my website, I do have them in here. So if I go to like the QuickBooks Enterprise, and then you can see here, and I give you details and pricing. You can download a trial, 30-day trial, so you can kind of test it. But on this form, a couple things. You would start, if nothing else, you would do the silver. That's the bare minimum. But that does give you the new version when it rolls out. It gives you that 12 hours of training, gives you the US-based tech support. You also get you get the lower rates on credit card processing, which is really nice. You also have the Intuit Data Protect, which is off-site backup for you, and it's not just for your QuickBooks, it can be other files. It's really nice. The next level would be gold. Let's see if I've got here, if I've got the chart. I do. So I've got the chart here, so there's the silver. The gold picks up the payroll, so it's the direct deposit as well as the checks on there. And usually the direct deposit is the real gotcha. So that has been well worth it for a lot of people. See, if you're looking at at Premier, I would take a look at, and you're doing payroll in-house, I would take a look at your cost or, reach out to me. Then Platinum is where you pick up your, I would say more your inventory-related features. So it's the multiple locations, oops, typo, I need to fix that, the bin tracking, serial or lot number tracking, the first in, first out versus average cost, barcoding, and then the advanced pricing. So you can, so you've got the quantity discounts, and then you can put in conditions. So it depends on what you kind of like where your needs are, but again, that kind of gives you like the high spot, I would say, on the differences or the benefits that you pick up when you move into enterprise. So as far as actual pricing, I find that there's promotions. As a pro advisor, I get certain promotions, and as a reseller, I get other promotions. So and there's a lot that I can do to help you, and I do keep up with the promotions. So you can reach out to me if you just want to see what pricing would be and all that fun stuff. Or if you have any other questions, you want to maybe see a more detailed demo of Enterprise. So any questions, then reach out to me, Monica Muir. Otherwise, thank you for your time, and I hope you have found this very helpful. Again, if you don't have that checklist, then you can go back to the Pro Premier Help Me Choose, just a couple of different places, and you can put in your name, email, and then grab the checklist, and you're good to go. All right, thanks. Take care.